Hello everyone and welcome to Off the Press. I'm Tokunbo Taiwo. Thank you very much for sharing a very busy news day with us. And Ramadan Kareem to all of our Muslim brothers and sisters. May the holy season bring joy and peace. With me this morning to discuss the major headlines on the dailies is a public affairs analyst, Tunbosun Akeju. So, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. So, was it easy getting into the studio today or difficult?
No, it was quite easy.
Okay.
Traffic wasn't that bad.
And how's the weather for you in terms of, good or bad? Or
It's getting a lot better.
better
Not as hot
as previously. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's look at the newspapers that we've got today, and then we can delve into the major headlines. We've got The Nation, we've got This Day, we've got Vanguard, we've got The Punch, we've got The Guardian, we've got Complete Sports. I don't know if we've got time to be able to do all of them and look into all of the details, but we'll see what we can do and at least trudge on. So without further ado, let's start with The Nation. Okay, with The Nation, we're starting right at the top, and in the top left-hand corner, we've got I was tempted to rig, says Kwara REC, page 43. And underneath that, we've got detained Adeleke to be arraigned today, page 6. On the right-hand side, in the top of The Nation, we've got 75 parties endorse 2019 poll results. And underneath that, Lagos entrance to Odua excites chair, gunmen release OAU professor, rule Africa in the details, Super Eagles. That sport, that story is on page 47. So that's the top of the stories on The Nation newspapers. The major headline, right, which is at the bottom, is new rules to protect local government funds from governors. There's a rider underneath that. The Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit plans sanctions against Erin Banks and Erin Banks CEOs. Okay, I think in the middle of the Nation newspaper, there are pictures of houses and cars. EFCC arrests 4 suspected internet fraudsters. That story is on page 6. Okay, just looking at the back here, the usual headlines. So we're going to go straight back onto the front cover of the Nation newspaper. New rules to protect local government funds from governors. That's the major headline. Let's start with your reaction to this.
I think it's a very great and welcome development. To be able to allow the local government have the financial autonomy that they're supposed to have. I don't think it's a completely new rule. I think it has always been in the Constitution. I think it's the implementation that has not really been done. My fear about this, again, is if the NFIU will be able to get the political will behind them to be able to fully execute this, because this particular development is going to take a substantial amount of the revenue that the state governors usually have access to. And it's going to actually dilute some of their political powers. They're not going to sit pretty and just watch it happen. They're going to push, for it. So they're going to either push through a constitutional loophole, or they're going to use political willpower to make sure it's not executed. But whatever happens, I think that the people of Nigeria, we the citizens must become active citizens and make sure that things like this, are fully implemented, because these are the things that will help strengthen our democracy and ensure that the dividends of democracy is delivered to the people of Nigeria. So it's a very interesting story right there.
Okay. Now, I don't really understand, this particular part, so I just maybe you can sort of educate me more, because the NFIU, they're basically planning sanctions against Erin Banks CEOs. Yeah. I would have thought that was the role of the EFCC, but you can't, educate me.
So the EFCC is economic financial crime.
Okay.
So if it has not been, if you don't have a case to prosecute, then you really can't go ahead. As a matter of fact, most of the EFCC cases are usually triggered by petition. The NFIU is actually like a control unit. So they are like a safeguard to say that this is the right thing to do. They can, they are the agency that is responsible for certain constitutional financial procedures.
Okay.
So if the constitutional procedure puts it there that if the money is in the bank for local government that federal government has set there, the governor does not have the right to appropriate or use that money. It is the NFIU that is saddled with the responsibility to say who can have access to that and sanction the bank. If you recall, the NFIU was one of the agencies that was very instrumental into explaining the suspension of the former CBN governor at some point. So they have very important roles to play when it comes to the implementation of the Constitution as regards financial procedures.
So with regards to this new rule, do you think they'll be able to regulate that to an effective...
That's what I'm saying, it's the political will. For example, the TSA has always been there. It was something that the World Bank had advised that Nigeria should do at some particular time. But there was no political will to fully implement it. There was a pilot of the idea, at some point, and then we left it. The former dispensation left it there until President Buhari, became the president and had the political will and power to say we must, implement this. So this, like I said, is not a completely new rule, but are we going to have enough political will to get the government? Because there's a governors forum and they are quite formidable. If the governors forum come together, and they can put pressure on the president, as you already know, the Nigerian president is arguably the most constitutionally powerful president in the world. So they can put pressure on the president and then will not have enough political will to see this through. So what's just going to happen is that we're just going to wake up one day and still know, and we'll find out that, oh, the state governors are still controlling it and then nobody is making it. Because at the end of the day, the head of the NFIU was, appointed by the presidency.
Exactly. So, but I hear you saying, political will. Yeah. It's key to making this successful.
Absolutely. But there's one thing we can do as activists is to put pressure. No government wants to be unpopular. So if all of us as citizens of Nigeria have agreed that this is a very important thing that must be implemented, then we must not keep quiet until this is fully implemented, because that's one of the ways that we can get this.
All right then, Tunbosun, thank you very much indeed for that. Let's move on to the next story. I think we should touch on Kwara. I was tempted to rig, says Kwara REC. So touch a little bit on that before we move on to our next newspaper.
When I saw that headline, I kind of giggled, because in my mind I was saying that how many of the regs were not tempted to rig? It's also interesting, and I'm happy to read the submission of the reg to say, oh, against all odds I was offered money, but I didn't go against the will of the people. And I'm happy that not every time, we don't want to hear bad news every time about Nigeria. It's just commendable to say that someone did offer me, and I refused. I think the step we should take, beyond this is to ask the question, so who offered you? Who had enough money? Who was evil enough to turn against the will, or to turn the will of the people around, so that it will set as an example, so that tomorrow, because we're all humans, people will have the deterrent not to even make the offer or make an attempt to bribe or to use money to turn around the will of the people. So I think it's a commendable news, but we need to take it to the next level, one step further, and then ask. But do you
think, hypothetically, if you did ask, he would be willing to sort of divulge the information?
Well, it's not going to be very easy to do. It's not, and it's not going to be an easy thing to prosecute. But I believe that the security agencies, they know how to go around some of these things.
And do you, because I don't know where you stand on this in terms of belief. I know he's actually come out to say, okay, he was tempted to rig, but he declined. But does every part of you believe that he's actually telling the truth, or this is actually for clout or for the next? Well,
I don't want to be a cynic, I don't want to be cynical. I want to believe that, because trust me, if your ears are to the ground during the election, you know that this is not really news. What is news about this is that someone is coming out to say it. And why I was surprised is that, why did you come out to say someone offered you money when you're not going to tell us who offered you money? Do you understand? But I think it's, permit me to say this, is normal for them to be offered this happens. It's normal. The thing we don't get, which is why I'm saying that we know that people usually offer you money. Let's take it a step further and mention the people that try to offer you money, so that next time nobody's making the attempt, because the threat is there that my name is going to be submitted. That
all right, let's leave that there and move on to our next newspaper. We've got This Day newspaper next, and let's look at the major headlines before we discuss that in detail. We'll start at the top with CBN to blacklist bank accounts linked with textile smugglers. Okay, that sounds very interesting. That story continues on page 6, and underneath that we've got again ITO shuts 150,000 BPD Nembe trunk line, page 8. Just in the middle of this day newspapers, we've got insecurity, no special treatment for Dara, says presidency. Underneath that, we've got 50 killed in fresh attacks on Zamfara communities, and Arewa youths protest over incessant killings. That story is on page 6. Okay, let's look at the major headline there. It's 75 political parties, rather, I beg your pardon, 75 political parties passed a vote of confidence on INEC chairman, blame the military and police for electoral shortcomings, and it's a welcome development, says commission. At the bottom of the newspaper, we've got on the left-hand side, see 4-year report card of Team Buhari. That's 2015 to 2019, part 3, pages 18 to 21. Okay, let's start with the major headline. 75 political parties pass vote of confidence on INEC chairman. Do you pass your own vote on the INEC chairman?
I don't even know if my opinion counts that much. I've not been able to. I can't say that I've done so much background work to be able to do that. The political parties have a right to pass the vote of confidence if they think it's worth it. But going by what we know in Nigeria, sometimes we know what this is. However, one thing that I've remained an advocate of is active citizenship. I think that it is one of the major ingredients that can help us to achieve and that can help deliver, the dividends of democracy in Nigeria. So if 75 political parties, and they said more than this during their meeting with INEC, they did request for President Buhari to sign the new electoral bill, and they did make some other requests like collation census in states and all of that. It's important for us to even start to prepare for the next 4 years, because the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. So if we're going to continue to have the development that we desire in our electoral process, then this active engagement will have to continue. What's very important is the sincerity. So the problem is not 75 political parties passing the vote, is they sincerely passing a vote of confidence? Have they seen things that are empirical to say this is the reason why we're passing the vote of confidence? I think that's the important thing there. Okay,
and they're also blaming military and police for electoral shortcomings. Do you think that's appropriate to blame them for the electoral?
I don't think that we should be having a blame game right here. The first thing that we should be thinking of, why do we even have the military on the streets during our elections? That's a major recipe for voter apathy. I don't want to be on the street and then see mean-looking men trying, you're already telling me that you think there's going to be a problem, So I don't think that is a time to blame game. I think what is, again, very important is to ensure that we put things in place that does not require the military to be on the street during the election.
Do you not think that they should just be on standby just in case? Because you know how politics has been in the past.
Being on standby is important. The funny thing, in Nigeria, we usually know where trouble can come from. We know, it's all you just need to do is put your ears to the ground. We know the places that are volatile places. We know who is. Sometimes we even know the person that is causing the trouble. What we might not have is enough evidence to pinpoint. So sometimes we don't also. So the use of military at some point is to scare people off in terms of those who can foment trouble, to scare them off. But I think we need to get to a place where we don't have to put the military on. And that's what we should be working towards, not the blame game.
All right, that makes sense. Let's quickly move on to CBN to blacklist bank accounts linked with textile smugglers. What's your take on that?
Well, The CBN, for whatever reason, will probably... I don't think this is going to solve the problem in the Nigerian textile industry. If you have a market of about $4 billion, and if you look at Nigeria, we do a lot of parties. There's actually a almost every Saturday, you know, and we are, you know, we just the kind of people we are. We're a ripe market. So if we do not have, if there's a market and we do not have industries, and the textile industries are not, you know, are not thriving here, we should look at the reason why they're not thriving. You know, so if you try to block out the smugglers, as long as there's a market for it, those things will find their way into this country. What I you know, think, which is part of the things they're trying to do, but I think that should be a bit of more focus, is how do we make it easier and cheaper to do business in Nigeria? Because beyond, you know, the immediate benefit of having those industries in Nigeria, beyond the direct people that will be employed in there are more economic, socio-economic benefits, as it were, you know, of having those industries in Nigeria. So if you have an industry that's $4 billion, you know, that's enough revenue to have, you know, this textile industry in Nigeria. So I think beyond smoggling, they should take care of the problem.
So you don't think blacklisting their accounts will be effective in any way, shape, or form?
We are very smart people.
So they would go around.
Will find a way around it. As long as there's a market, what will stop them is, as the day it becomes easier and cheaper to produce textile in Nigeria, we will kind of start looking away. There are certain things that we usually want to go for outside the country now that we started to look inward. I mean, coincidentally, I'm not wearing a suit today. You know, a few years ago, you probably will look at me strange if I walked into the studio on Tuesday and then I'm not wearing a suit. But today you go to offices and then you see people, you know, dressed in Nigerian attire. Exactly. So until we get to, and then we have the fashion, you know, our fashion industry is really, really, really growing. So if the enabling environment is there, if it's cheaper, if it's more acceptable to buy things in Nigeria, if we have that orientation to buy Nigerian textile and all of that, yes, we still need to block the smugglers from coming in, but then the impetus to do that will have drastically reduced. So I think that should be more of a focus than, you know, this.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our next newspaper. We've got Vanguard. The major headline on the Vanguard is federal government stops governors from seizing local government allocations. And then there's a number of riders underneath that to begin direct allocations to 774 local government areas as of June the 1st. Defaulting banks will be sanctioned, limit daily cash withdrawal from LGA accounts to 500,000 naira. Any transaction above 500,000 naira must go via checks, e-transfer, and the NGF keeps mum on this story, which is on detailed in the Vanguard on page 5. Let's look at the top of the Vanguard newspapers. Kidnapping now, new occupation, industry for youths, Buhari says. That story is on page 8. 50 killed in fresh attacks on Zamfara communities as IGP appears before Senate today, page 9. And Nigeria, others to benefit from World Bank's $224.7 million off-grid fund. That story is detailed inside. Family of kidnapped OAU lecturer begs for his release. That story is on page 40. Okay, at the bottom of the Vanguard newspapers, we've got some headlines on the left-hand side. Police detain Adeleke PDP, Gaba candidate in Osun, page 40. Appeal court declines to sack Ogun governor-elect over academic qualification. And the last story at the bottom there on the left-hand side is tax base to hit 45 million as database integration nears completion, says JTB. That story is on page 9. Okay, because the major headline, you know, is one we've already talked about, I think we should look at some other stories. Yes? Yeah. Okay, so let's start with this tax base, you know, your initial reaction once again.
Again, another very interesting news. A few weeks ago, we had the news about, even though it has, you know, been denied, but the attempt to increase tax rate. And, you know, the first thing everybody was saying, increase the tax net. That's the first thing I think we need to do. We need to get more people into the tax net. I think the next thing is the ease of paying Nigeria is arguably one of the, as at end of 2017, beginning of 2018, there was a report that Nigeria is the 7th or 9th most difficult country to pay tax to. So if I was willing to pay tax today, the stress I'm going to go through to, pay tax will most likely, discourage me from paying. So it's a welcome development that we are dragging more people into the tax net. Very, very interesting. But let's take it a step further. Let's make it easier for people to pay, their taxes and all of that. And then, I think that would also, what it means is that we'll have enough money, to execute the projects we have.
Well, the issue that as people sometimes have with regards to paying tax, they don't feel that the government is doing enough to utilize the tax, so why should they pay in the first instance?
Two wrongs don't make it right.
Exactly.
And I think that one of the ways that we're going to become very active is when you have skin in the game. If you look at the states in Nigeria, Lagosians seem to be the most vocal part of Nigeria about what government is doing. And I think one of the reasons is because Lagosians know that they are paying a lot of taxes. So the demand on the government in Lagos is higher than
anywhere else.
Yes, and so I think that if we have skin in the game, you're paying taxes, you're going to start making certain demands. You're not going to wish a lot of things away and all of that. But, I recognize that problem is there, but I think that two wrongs don't make it right. If we pay taxes, we should do it, and then perhaps we'll also become more active citizens. Okay,
let's move on to Zamfara now, where 50 have been killed in fresh attacks in the communities there as the IGP appears before the Senate today. Okay. I think it was the president. I don't know if you saw that
the video.
Yes, where he was saying the IGP has gone lean or is...
I think, I saw that video, very short, so I might not be able to put it in proper, context. However, it sounded like the president was joking, and I think that's a bit insensitive. Whatever. Whether
he was joking or not, you think it was insensitive?
Yeah, I think it was insensitive.
So he should not have been joking about something like that.
These are lives. I'm sorry. I think we're losing our sense of empathy in Nigeria. Because in other countries, 50 people die. It's a lot. The mosque shooting in New Zealand. It was morning. Then 50 people died, and then we just wish it away. And then it seems like the president is even making a joke. I don't think that.
And I think I think because of the number of killings that we have on a regular basis, people are becoming more desensitized, to the numbers. And I think probably that's one of the reasons why he made that joke, which made it, like from what you're saying, insensitive.
It made it worse. I don't think that. And the way to check if a man is working is not by him growing lean. Get the results. That's what we want to see.
That's the thing.
I still think that perhaps the security agencies are not doing the things they're supposed to do. Because
sorry to cut in there, because something just quickly came to mind now. I know some countries were actually offering some kind of assistance. Do you think if we can't actually handle this on our own, that we should actually get them involved?
It's not something that I would like, but if the people on ground cannot get results, why not? Let's ask for help.
Because this has been going on for too long.
I think people are not doing the things they're supposed to do.
That's what if they're not, I think we should resort to foreign help.
I think that before we ask for foreign help, can we deal with the people who are supposed to do what they're doing and they're not doing it? Because foreign help comes with its own baggage. It comes with its own baggage.
Absolutely.
So the people who are supposed to be working and not working, can we deal with them first? Because trust me, these things, they will spread. The insecurity in the country is growing. The president is saying now kidnapping is like a new occupation. I don't think that that's something that is supposed to come from him. But,
yes, as a president.
Yes, but I think it's a problem, and we need to nip it in the bud before it goes out of hand.
I hope they can nip it in the bud. Let's move on to the next newspaper now. It's The Punch that we're looking at next, and the major headline on The Punch is LGs can't withdraw more than 500,000 naira cash daily from June. That story we've seen on the major headlines on some of the other newspapers as well. So let's quickly look at the top. We've got CBN to blacklist firms, individuals smuggling textiles. We saw that story as well on other newspapers. That story is on page 25. Underneath that, at the top, we've got on the left-hand side, abducted copper. NYSC contacts family and colleague says Boko Haram demands ransom. That story is on page 13. Next to that, we've got in the middle, bandits kill 31 in fresh Zamfara attack, page 2. And on the right-hand side, at the top of that newspaper, we've got PDP protests Adeleke's detention, police to arraign senator today, page 7. Okay, at the bottom of the Punch newspaper, we've got a big picture right in the middle there with a group of former employees of Lagos State Waste Management Authority who are protesting against their disengagement from the Lagos State Civil Service, in Magboro area. Okay, that's the picture there. And then at the bottom of the newspaper, we've got a number of stories as well. 2015 polls, I gave 10 million cash to Kwara. CP says... Belgore, page 3. And then we've got death of Unijos VC's son, 200 level student sparks controversy, pages 4 and 5. And on the right-hand side, bottom right-hand side, 2023, deal with over-ambitious APC members, El Rufai tells president. Okay, let's see. Which one of these stories do you want to talk about? There's one we haven't actually. PDP fumes in the middle of the Punch. PDP fumes as presidency says killings under Buhari lower than other governments. Let's talk about that.
Going back to the issue of insecurity in the country, I'm surprised that, and even the opposition is stooping so low to start comparing numbers. Again, I think we're losing our sense of empathy. Why are we comparing the numbers of human lives lost? Human lives were lost. We need to fix the problem. I think that's the major thing everybody should focus on. There is a major problem that we are facing in the country, and everybody seems, the opposition seem to want to play politics with it. I think that's also not acceptable. I think we should look for the solution to the problem and not, start to trade blame or start to compare numbers, between the various dispensations that have been in the country. I don't think that would be the way to go at this point in time. When there's killing in Zamfara, there's kidnapping here. The president is saying that kidnapping is looking like the new occupation. Nobody is safe then. Our highways are not safe. Even our homes are not safe. So I think that we should rise. So if we need to increase our method of policing, then let's go for it. If we need to increase, the number of men in the forces, if we need to upgrade our intelligence machineries, then let's do it. We have to fix this problem because these things do not happen in split seconds. There's a procedure to it. There's a build up to it, and then the whole country is in trouble.
All right then, thank you very much. I think because of time, we can't go further because I was hoping we might be able to go through the Guardian, but because of time, we're going to wrap up here. Thank you so much. It's been, as always, very interesting talking to you and getting your insights.
Thank you for having me.
We've been listening to Tunbosun Akeju, our analyst for today, right here on Off the Press, and that's where we're going to wrap up right here, right now. If you've thoroughly enjoyed the program, you can tune in tomorrow, same time, same channel on Plus TV Africa, when we'll be back with all of the major headlines from the national dailies. Until tomorrow, I remain Tokunbo Taiwo saying good morning.